So I was just hanging out in the lab before all the lights came on. I got off work early, everything was going great, and as soon as those lights popped on, this is what I come to find. We got a rainbow fish down. You know, these are just things that happen. So the first thing that I think is, okay, what did happen? Why did this fish die? Looking at all the other fish in the tank, they all look spectacular. Again, the lights just turned on, all the rainbows are turned up, super colorful. But this guy, one of my big, beautiful rainbow fish, is no longer. So again, I think back, you know, what has changed in this tank? What did I recently do that could have caused this fish to die? And honestly, I can't think of anything. Yesterday, I did do a big water change, but rainbow fish love big cold water changes, and everybody else in the tank, not just the rainbow fish, are totally fine. And this guy, if you look at his body, you know, there's no signs of any foul play. You know, he's not beat up. It doesn't appear that he has any disease, you know, that we can tell from the exterior of his body. But, you know, it just sucks. Sometimes these things just happen. You don't have an explanation for why a fish dies. I myself am like not super attached to, you know, all my fish. I mean, I'm not a completely heartless person. You know, I do pick my favorites. If Big Teddy Bridgewater over here bit the bullet, I would be pretty disappointed. I would be sad, you know, and I know that that's probably a lot of the way for a lot of you guys. But you know, it just sucks. So not a great way to start the day. I got a lot of work to do today. We're gonna go ahead and take him out and give him a proper burial. Whenever I have a fish die, I sort of have a routine process that I go through. Obviously, get him out of the tank, because if he does, you know, if he died because of a parasite or, you know, a bacterial infection, something that could spread to the other fish, I want to go ahead and I want to get him out of the tank as soon as possible. So I'm about to do that. But I just wanted to show you guys, you know, share the sad news with you. It's something that happened. What I like to do is to take a fish and I like to put him into like a potted plant, or, you know, something. I have a big rubber plant in my living room, so I'm going to scoop this guy out and I'm probably going to bury him in the big pot that plant's in. And then that way he can be recycled in a natural way. He can turn into, you know, carbon, nitrogen, all the important nutrients that the plant needs to grow, and in a way, he can become part of that plant. You can also obviously just go, you know, put him out in the garden or something if you want. You know, maybe some of you don't want to have a dead fish in your living room, but, you know, you bury them, that, you know, they don't smell or anything. It's not a big deal. So yeah, I'm going to quickly go ahead and do that. Say my last goodbyes to this guy. Such a shame. He was such a beautiful big fish. But then we're going to go ahead and get into the main topic that we're going to talk about today. Today actually didn't turn out to be a total disaster like I thought it was going to be. Something really cool came in the mail today that I want to share with you guys, and we're going to talk about this really quick before we get into water circulation, why it's so important, how it can make or break plant growth, and most importantly, what I've been using to circulate water that I think that people haven't been using, at least I haven't seen lately in the hobby. So this all started like 2 or 3 months ago when I decided that there just needed to be some cool planted tank themed apparel and just other stuff that was cool because it doesn't exist. So what I've done is I created some designs for t-shirts, hats, mugs, and other stuff on a platform, on a website called Zazzle. And I'd really appreciate it if you guys would go and check it out and let me know what you think about it. Here is the planted t-shirt, very simple. It's just, you know, got some type of Amazon sword here with some roots. It says planted, obviously, but I don't know, like, I just got tired of not seeing anything related to planted tanks on this type of stuff. So over here I have a hat that is the planted hat, and it has that same sword on it, as well as, you know, what looks like some Liguigia, and there's some corkscrew valve on there as well. And so that's the planted hat. I also have a mug here. These are actually images of my own Cardinal Tetras and a Monte Carlo carpet that I had a while back, and it's just on a little mug here. So I don't know. The site isn't done. There's a bunch of other designs that are up on there that are, you know, not this at all. So I'd appreciate it if you guys would head over there, check it out, let me know what you think about it. And you know, that feedback is going to be really important for me. I like the stuff so far. I mean, you know, I am kind of biased because I made it, but I definitely want to improve on it and make things as cool as possible. You know, stuff that people would actually like. You can buy this stuff if you want. I mean, obviously that's a really good way to help support the channel. It's sort of like the alternative to doing like a Patreon or anything. So if you guys like the channel and you want to support what I'm doing here, and you happen to like the designs and want to get yourself a t-shirt, a hat, a mug, or you know, any of the other stuff that's on Zazzle and available, I'd really appreciate that. It helps support the channel a lot and helps me to be able to create new tanks and do fun projects a lot more often. Zazzle is like a print-on-demand company, so when you go and order the stuff, then they make it and ship it to you, and it doesn't take that long. Like the shirt probably took the longest. It was like, I think, a week for me to get it. The hat and stuff, I got it within, you know, a week. I think there's also a koozie around here. So yeah, there's some pretty interesting designs. Like, I don't know, I think it's something that's kind of cool, but I'm gonna need your guys' help to help make it even better. There's a link down in the description. I would really appreciate it if you guys would at least go and just check it out and give me some feedback on the designs and what you think would be cool to see on some stuff like this. So anyway, that's enough of that. Let's go ahead and talk about water circulation. I think it's fair to assume that most of us know that water circulation is super important even in planted aquariums. Obviously, in reef tanks, circulation is a huge factor in whether or not corals are going to grow and other things like that, but planted tanks, water circulation can be just as important. So if you have poor water circulation in your planted aquarium, a bunch of different things will happen that can negatively impact the system. And they're all based around the fact that that water isn't moving. And the fancy word for this is basically stratification. And what stratification is just a fancy word for you're gonna have areas where there's stagnant water. When scientists refer to this stratification, they're usually talking about the different layers of microbial communities that form in lakes during different times of the year, but we're not so much concerned about that. What we're concerned about is that we don't have a good flow of water through our tank that's helping to pass nutrients along to our plants and a bunch of other things. So when you have, say, like a 55-gallon tank that you just bought from Petco's $1 per gallon sale, and maybe you got the whole setup and you got, you know, an HOB with it, but you didn't get any other sort of power head or anything, you're not gonna have very good circulation with that pump alone. You're gonna want something else to help create more of a current in your tank. Now there's a balance to doing this, and I'll talk about that here in a second. Back to poor water flow though. So what's gonna happen? Yeah, you're not gonna have a good mixing of your water, and you're not gonna get a good distribution of nutrients that your plants need to grow well. That's number one. Number two is that if you have a lot of dead spots or stratification throughout your scape, that can promote growth of a bunch of different types of algae. Now, even if you have good flow in different areas of your tank, you can still get algae. That's not the main route. We're talking about balance most of the time when we talk about preventing algae, but this can definitely happen. When we get stratification in lower areas of the tank, particularly the corners and in, you know, more of these dead spots that you may have if you don't have good circulation, you can get buildup of fish mulm, aka detritus, which is not going to be good for the overall health of the system. And I like to think about circulation like this. You know, when you go to a greenhouse, there are fans that blow new air in and old air out. And that's because the plants that are growing in there need to have a good airflow so they can get that fresh air, that fresh CO2 into their area for them to grow, and they need to expel the old air out. So the same thing can be thought about the aquarium, you know, except with water. You need to have good water flow throughout your system for your plants to grow well, to have everything they need, to get access to all the nutrients and even, you know, the CO2 that they need. They need to have good water current passing up under them, getting to all of their leaves so they can grow really well. And without it, you're just not gonna see the best results that you would otherwise. You can still grow plants without really good flow, but it's just gonna help that much more. So now let's talk about the wave makers that I use to circulate my tanks with. A lot of people, and I think most people out there, are still using power heads. So power heads are, of course, like what I have back here in the back of my 125. which I use to push CO2 through my tank, which isn't the best way to do it, but it's what I'm doing over here. With a power head, you get a jet-like current coming out of it, which isn't my favorite thing for planted tanks because it tends to blow plants like crazy, especially the ones that are right next to it. Now, this one's not doing it so bad to the Java fern here, and it's not really, you can't even see it moving it at all, and that's because it has a pre-filter on it that is totally clogged up. I need to clean it, but that's why that's not doing it. But what I like to do instead is use these wave makers. And I've talked about these before in a lot of different videos. I've mentioned them more than a few times, but they are my absolute favorite, and I highly recommend them to anybody out there that has a planted tank. Seriously, I love these things. This is a wave maker made by Jipow or Jipo, or however you say it. It's a Chinese brand. I butchered that, but it's an awesome pump and I highly recommend it. So this is the older model. It's called the RW4, and they also make an RW8 and a couple others that are just more powerful. The 4 is the least powerful model. And like I said, this is the older model. The new one is called the PP4 instead of the RW4, and it's actually cheaper than this one. So part of the reason why I haven't made a review for this product yet is because I haven't gotten a chance to get the newer model, and I'm gonna be doing that super soon here, so hang tight for that official review. But these things are awesome, and here's why. The biggest reason why I like these is because they run on DC, so you can modulate the amount of electricity that is going to this and thus the power that it's putting out. These RW4s, like I said, are the least powerful of the series, but dude, they kick water. It's gonna range from about 130 gallons per hour up to a little over 1,000 gallons per hour when it's turned all the way up. So on these pumps, you have a controller, which looks like this, and you can control a bunch of different settings. I mean, they're sort of, they're made for a reef tank. Like you can do, you can change the frequency that it puts out, so it can do a pulsing type of a thing, or it can do a wave motion with the power in the pump. Or you can just put it on constant like I have. So on a 4-foot tank, I have the power here, not even all the way up, and you can see that this RW4 is creating a nice ripple across the top of the tank that goes pretty much all the way over to the edge here on the other side of the tank. And that's really good. And that's another thing I want to talk about, is that when you're using a wave maker or a power head, you don't want to have a crazy amount of break here on the water surface, especially if you're using CO2. What that's going to do is that's going to decrease the efficiency of your CO2 diffusal, because CO2 is going to more easily escape your system. So what I like to do is just create a really easy ripple here. And you can see that here on the top, that it's not quite breaking, it's slightly breaking the surface of the water, but not by much. So on a 4-foot tank, a 55, a 75, a 90, it's a perfect pump. Again, it's not all the way up. Over here on the 125, we have this one all the way up. It's on a constant amount of power, so it's pushing at its max capacity, and it's doing pretty much the same thing. We have a little bit more of a ripple up here, which I don't mind, and it makes its way a little bit more than halfway through the tank. But as we get here to the end, over on this 6-foot tank, you can see that the water isn't moving as much. But the entire tank still has good water movement, and that's because I match it by having my filter output over here, and I also have that power head with my CO2 over here as well. So there is water movement back there, you just can't, you're not seeing it up here at the water level like you are on the other side of the tank. So like I said, this pump, one of my all-time favorites. I'm about to get 2 more of the newer version of it to do a review for you guys. I just decided while I was filming this that I need to do it. There's a bunch of other features that you can get into with this pump. You can link them together and have them communicate and do some different stuff. So I'm looking forward to do that. There's also a night mode and a bunch of other things in here that I will talk about in my full review. But regardless, I highly recommend this pump. I'll put a link down in the description so you guys can learn a little bit more about these. And yeah, love them, love them, love them. They're also a lot smaller than the majority of the other wave makers out there that put out an equal amount of power. For example, over in the 72, I have in the dirty 72, sorry about all that algae, guys, one of the tanks I need to get to working on a little bit more. But over here, I have a wave maker in the back. This is I think it's a Sun brand, but it is rated, this is like an 800 gallon per hour power head, and it's good. You know, this is another 4-foot tank. It's kind of blowing that Java Fern around a little bit more than I'd like, but I don't really have an option there. It's hard to compare the two because they're not side by side, but this pump is easily twice as big as the RW4. So just the fact that it takes up twice as much room is kind of, you know, that's almost a deal breaker for me. In this situation, it's okay because it's hidden, but, you know, in a lot of other tanks, I wouldn't want that much pump sticking out and ruining my scape. This pump, like a lot of others like it, is held on by a suction cup. Now, you can get ones that have magnets, but this is another reason why I really like the G-POW wave makers, is because they're held on with a really nice magnet. Very low profile. I think they're great for planted tanks. Highly recommend them. So yeah, guys, I think that's gonna wrap it up for today's video. I know it probably turned out to be a little bit longer than at least I imagined it would be, but I appreciate you hanging in there. We're gonna get to rescaping this tank, the 72, and prepping it for some new fish. I'm really excited about that. And you know what? We're probably gonna do a makeover on the 125 again here pretty soon. So hang in there with me. We'll get to all that fun stuff. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Leave a comment. What do you think about these pumps? Have you tried them before? Do you like them? Do you use them? I'm curious. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.